reaction is because it cuts through time. It goes all the way back to your childhood. It's kind of like telling somebody, the analogy I came up with a little while ago is like kind of like telling somebody you're adopted. If I came to you and said, you know what, I'm pretty sure you're adopted. Right? And you go, I am not. No offense if you are adopted, and it's like no man. And you go into tonight, it's like no, I am not. I absolutely know, positively, 100%, I'm not adopted. And in fact, as long as you're in that state of mind, it doesn't affect you whatsoever until because people say, what do I care if the earth is round or flat? It's not going to affect me. I go, it's not going to affect you until you believe it. And once you, all of a sudden, once the second you think, wait a minute. Am I adopted? The second you do that, all of a sudden your mind reaches all the way back to when you were 6 years old. And you start, it's like, wait a minute, what did my parents, who are those people? I remember being in a basket or whatever it is. All of a sudden you start questioning all the memories leading up to that point. And it can be jarring, really, really jarring. And so, I don't blame, people yell, people brace, but there's a line that I've used. And I still think it's applicable today, which is if you don't laugh at flat Earth the first time you hear it, there's probably something wrong with you. Because everybody should, because that's what the conditioning is. We all know it's a globe. We were raised that it was a globe, at least through high school. And if you made it, if you made it through like your bachelor's or master's or PhD, if you have like a master's in a physical science, there's nothing I can do. It's too far in your brain. You will not believe it literally until mainstream stuff comes out and says, by the way, the earth is flat. And then you'll probably crawl into a bottle for a year. Drink a lot of scotch.
And that's my next question though. How do you think the world as a whole would react if there was definitive proof, like you were able to send a spaceship or a person or whatever it is,
right?
Or whatever test you could do it, but it definitively proved that the Earth was actually flat, and no one can deny it.
Nowadays, I don't think it would be that bad because of social media. Meaning, yes, it would affect a lot of people. Now, does that mean there wouldn't be chaos? No. There potentially could be a lot of chaos, and I talked about that in the clues, which was, and it's a three-pronged issue, which is, first off, is academic, which is, you got to remember, there's a lot of universities in the world, and you were talking about astrophysics and astronomy. You'd basically have to shut those down, those close. You wouldn't even reopen those until you figure out what the hell's going on. And the remaining physical sciences, geology, hydrology, biology, archaeology, take your pick. Those have to be rebuilt, literally from the ground floor. And that's just academia, right? Economically, the world markets are so twitchy on a regular basis. I mean, come on, if Donald Trump got pneumonia tomorrow and he'd be like on his deathbed, the markets would reflect that. That's one guy. All of a sudden, you tell people the Earth is not, that science was wrong about or hiding it, or some science, not all science, obviously, was hiding this thing. You'd have to basically suspend world markets for, I'm guessing, at least a month, maybe two, before you even announce it, just because of the knee-jerk reaction would be panic. The markets would be like, okay, because everyone wants to know how, there'd be so much speculation on where the money is wasted and where, emerging markets versus declining markets, they wouldn't even know where to go with the money. It's like, okay, like what happens with this, and especially war, which I talked about. It's like, look, we have huge weapon companies in this world, massive. Some of the biggest companies in the world are weapons companies. But if we are in an enclosed system, that changes sort of the aspect of war. And so, anyway, world markets. And then, of course, the last, but certainly not least, would be the religious angle, which is... think of it this way. All the big five religions in the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they all have a stake in this, right? They've been beaten over the head with science textbooks for the last 500 years. And all of a sudden you're giving those five groups simultaneously leverage against science. And you're asking them not to take revenge. That will be so difficult for them because they talk about science in every sermon every week. They talk, and so you're asking them, because here's what's going to happen. They would go back, they would just push back to science that would be, okay, so you were wrong about this really big thing. I think we should revisit other things, like, I don't know, evolution, carbon dating, the Big Bang Theory, dark matter, dark energy, just about everything. Basically, science would be on the ropes for a while, and they wouldn't know what to do. And so you combine those three things, and people ask like, why would you hide it? And it's like, are you kidding? That's one of the shortest smoking man X-Files meetings ever. It's like because somebody says, hey, what's the worst that could happen? And then you rattle off what I just rattled off. And they'd be like, yeah, we're gonna release this when we think the public is ready. And part of me thinks that the public is pretty much ready now. I mean, everything's ready. Everything's in place for it. Meaning the 6 billion smartphones, social media, high-speed internet. You can get the same story, the old criminal saying, it's like, let's get our story straight. You can push the same message to everybody in a very, very quick amount of time to where 99% of the people would be at least fed the same spin. And then do with it what you want. But that's why you hide it. And that's why eventually, but it can't be kept a secret forever. It can't. The technology caught up with them, and they knew this. I mean, these aren't dumb people. They recruit only the best and brightest. Anyway, that's it.
I mean, that's a very valid point, though, because I can see that really causing a huge ripple effect through, like you said, all different types of categories. Like you said, religious, economic, just even like a personal day-to-day life. I mean, you've been told like a lie essentially your entire life, and then suddenly, oh yeah, by the way, like you said, the Earth is actually flat. Yeah, me personally, I'd be like, I think I'd be a little bit more be like, oh, okay, well,
yeah, I mean, okay, let's change it up though. Let's say the average person on the street, because I've heard this a lot. It's like, hey, you know what? I still have to go to work in the morning. My wife still doesn't listen to me. My kids are terrible. My life doesn't change that much. I was like, well, it does and it doesn't. One, everyone would be talking about it. That's all they would be talking about for years, if not decades. People would be just talking about it constantly. This would be like the topic on the street. At the same time, though, there'd be people out there, like you were saying, they would question. It's like all of a sudden they'd walk outside and they'd just look up at the sky and they go, huh. And then they'd be like, what does this mean? How does this... And of course, the default thing, and not saying that it's going to kill atheism, but sometimes they do say that because it's really tough to be an atheist. You got to remember, the default state for flat Earth, if we are in a building, some sort of structure, is that it was built by someone. And fine, if you don't follow one of the main religious houses, at the very least, it's a civilization that's way older and way more powerful than us. And if that's the case, I'm not, if you want to say it's aliens, if it makes you feel better, fine, it's aliens. But either way, I mean, one man's advanced civilization is another man's deity. And then you're just kind of splitting hairs. But come on, if a giant golden spaceship landed somewhere tomorrow, as long as the beings were better looking than us, there would be a huge contingency in this world that would worship them. Plain and simple. Yeah. But again, that's the key there. People, it's like they have to be better looking than us. If they look anything like any movie alien ever made, there's going to be a bias. They have to, in fact, you could only be one of really 3 colors. Here's the weird thing. You could only be, if you came out and did this, you have to be either blue, like Avatar, silver, or gold. Any other color is already here. So there would be this bias. Anyway, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, it would be crazy. Now, do you think, okay, like I say, keep it on topic, if the Earth was proven to be flat,
right,
do you think rules would reverse? See, now we have like a flat Earth community. Do you think there would still be people who disbelieve in now what is accepted as the norm is the flattest Earth, and you'd have like a globe Earthers? Like the roles would reverse.
Oh yeah, there might be, but if you were gonna do, but it's different now because again of social media. Back in the day when it went from a flat Earth to a globe, remember there were barely newspapers 500 years ago. So I mean, word of mouth took a long time to pass. I mean, heck, there were people that couldn't. A lot of the population couldn't even read and write. So. There might be some globe earthers that would still hold on, I suppose, but most of the population would cave in because of peer pressure and, again, the authority. You have to be somebody in authority to make the announcement. A lot of people believe, like Dana Perino, whatever the television tells them is true. If the hardcore globe, here's the irony, the hardcore globe resistance would be scientists, and by that I mean most of them would be physicists and astrophysicists because they are highly based in math, and they just wouldn't be able to accept it. Which is, it's like, look, because you're talking about them, they spend a huge amount of money in education and decades of their lives trying to work out equations for the solar system that they never could reach. And then all of a sudden you're telling, oh yeah, by the way, there is no solar system. So, sorry. You were looking at a television screen, for lack of a better word, and thinking that it was real. Your math might have been, sort of right, but it doesn't really matter.